Well, Julie, no Republican voted yes on Article 1 or 2 of impeachment. Only 2 Democrats voted no on both articles. One of them is a longtime representative from Minnesota.
Today, we are here to defend democracy for the people.
Despite more than 8 hours of testimony today, none of Minnesota's representatives spoke on the floor of the House, either in favor or against impeachment. Minnesota's 8 congressional districts are represented by 3 Republicans, Jim Hagedorn, Tom Emmer, and Pete Stauber, along with 5 Democrats, Angie Craig, Dean Phillips, Betty McCollum, Ilhan Omar, and Colin Peterson. Tonight, all eyes were on Peterson, who was one of just 2 Democrats who joined Republicans in voting no on both articles of impeachment. Why? President Trump won Peterson's 7th district by more than 30 points in 2016, and the chairman of the Minnesota DFL says that is significant to Peterson.
He's one of the few politicians in Washington who still puts his district ahead of his party. He's survived for close to 30 years now in the most Republican district in the country held by a Democrat. And one of the reasons he does is because he actually represents his constituents.
And despite Peterson's vote, some Minnesota Republicans, including Peterson's challenger in 2020, attacked him tonight for remaining quiet about his vote and not speaking out against his fellow Democrats. Regardless, the impeachment process will now move forward. Here's a look at what's next.
The impeachment process now moves to the Senate, which is currently controlled by Republicans. There aren't any set rules for a Senate trial, so they pass a resolution laying out the trial procedures. Then they hold a trial. A team of lawmakers from the House, called managers, play the role of prosecutors. The president has defense lawyers, and the Senate is the jury. After the trial, the Senate votes. If fewer than 2/3 of the senators find the president not guilty, Trump remains in office. If 2/3 or more of them find him guilty, President Trump is removed from office and Vice President Pence takes over as president. There is no appeal.
Despite the vote tonight, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi still controls when the articles of impeachment get sent to the Senate. And tonight she said she will wait to name the impeachment managers until she sees what the Senate has planned for the trial. So this could take a while, Julie.
Right, so this is essentially in her hands right now. Once she picks those prosecutors or managers, then they move forward?
Right, and it's a political strategy right now because they're not satisfied with what they're hearing from the Republicans in the Senate on whether this will be a fair trial.
And everyone's trying to weigh how it's going to affect the 2020 election for both sides.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kent.